Okay, I'd like to call to order the Lincoln Building Committee meeting at 16:04 hours. Representative Paul Mullen will not be here. He did send me an email or a text message saying he was unable to attend. Start off with review and approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting from May 31st, 2022? Does anybody see any corrections?
I just like the committee, this is my daughter Jessica, you've heard me talk about.
Yep.
And her fiance Justin.
Nice to meet you.
You guys. Architect. Structural engineer.
Perfect. Like to hear.
Okay,
I didn't see
any corrections,
or anything,
anybody?
yeah.
No,
I'll look at everything.
All right, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Seconded? Okay, beautiful. Number 3 on the agenda was interview questions. We're also to come up with maybe 3 questions. I noticed that KV Partners came up with a number of questions. Is this also from you, Karina? From the
Yeah,
town?
Ray and I discussed it and then formalized it in a memo. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? You do? You have a list of them?
I just have one.
Okay.
If they have to redesign something because they messed it up, not because we changed, we don't want that there, we want it over here, is that going to be an extra fee on the town?
Who's they? Do you mean the architectural firm?
Yes, whoever
We'd
designs
have to
it.
approve the plans that they draw up prior to construction.
I know,
So,
but for as many times as some of the plans in town have had to be redesigned, I hate to see.
but that would be our fault, not theirs, so that would be on us.
Change
If
orders.
we approve a design and say, yep, here's your stamp, you gotta go, and then we decide we want the bathroom on the other end of the building, that's on us.
I realize that, I'm talking about it, they made the mistake, not us.
We want to start out with the interview process with
Right.
these guys so they can tell what they really need and what they want. Then the design. will
Right,
be
right.
From there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty reasonable that in most construction projects, not only construction projects and many projects, that you can, everything is good on paper, but once you get a shovel in the ground, things ultimately change. So it's pretty common for there to be change orders.
Yeah.
But I think that, like John said, that if we can hopefully establish a baseline in the, design process with the chiefs and what they need, that that can, help us try to eliminate some of these major, or potential major issues. My thought.
Yeah.
Are we all gonna approve the drawings, or is it just gonna be you and Ray Colvin, or who's gonna approve?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that question. I think leading up to this, it's been the committee that was kind of spearheading this, but I think once the contract with the selectmen for the firm happens, I think it's gonna be more so probably the chiefs working with the architect to kind of come up with the design and probably present it to the building committee, similar to presenting it to the selectmen. But I think as far as who's gonna be chicken scratching on paper of what makes sense or where an evidence room is or what, I think that's probably gonna be most likely the chiefs and,
The
the
final signature,
consultant.
the final signature will be the town manager prior to shovel going in the ground.
Is your paying for it? Sure.
Well, that's her job by law.
Yeah.
So,
But I imagine like the work group will most likely be the chiefs and the architect we choose and, probably some consulting with Ray Corber, but I think will probably be a team effort.
So has everybody had a chance to look at the questions? So are we picking 3 of the questions out of all of them to ask the the firms or how we?
No, I think, I kind of highlighted my favorite questions and what I thought, where maybe I thought were good questions, and I think maybe we all can do that. We can look at the list and say, pick your favorite questions or questions that you would like to hear the answer from are relevant. I think the point of this interview is not to be a firing squad and ask them a question, because anyone can give you a cookie cutter good answer. They're all probably experienced firms. They've all have some, that's why they put in an RFQ for this. They all have experience. I think the goal of these interviews is to get a feel for these people, because once we select them, we're going to be working with them on a weekly, daily basis for the next few years. So we want to get a feel to make sure that this is someone, or these project managers are people that we can deal with day in and day out, and who is going to be our lead contact and who is going to be our point person. I think it's more of a conversation to get a feel for someone than it is making sure that they have the cookie cutter answer we want to hear, That's how I've always approached these things, when we've done RFQs for the other communities I've worked in. I've also made the mistake of, we hired someone because they were the lowest bidder and they were qualified, and then they were miserable to work with, so I think we've all gone down that road,
yes.
right? Or someone that is experienced in the field but was really painful to work with, so I think the goal is to try to get a feel for them and have them get a feel for us and see if we can come to an understanding point. So, but I think some of these questions need to be asked because it's gonna help us have a better
But I
understanding
wouldn't
of.
limit it to just those questions.
No.
Once we get someone going in any interview process, it's gonna be fairly organic, where if they say something that triggers a question, you gotta ask it. So,
100%. I think
yeah.
this is just kind of a baseline, a starting
good
point. It's
guideline.
gonna lead
Yep.
to other questions and other discussions.
That's a good interview guide. Yeah.
John, do you have any questions that you wrote up?
No, I didn't write any questions.
Jim, did you read any questions?
No, I was gonna have Jessica write some up, and she did. I don't know.
Are they on that list, or are they in addition to?
We have some in addition to this.
I'd love to hear them, please.
One being, I personally have never worked in municipality work. So all the architecture that I'm familiar with is multifamily or science and tech, things like that. And we don't necessarily require a peer review, but some companies, some architecture firms, depending on what they're doing, will require a peer review, which is an added cost to the owner, which would be an added cost to town. So I think that is one question that I don't know if it comes at this interview or if it comes after you've selected someone, but understanding if a peer review would be required to look at any of the drawings, whether it be the structural drawings or the architecture drawings, to make sure that they're complying with code or with specific guidelines that you guys need in your fire station or in your police station. That's one that I think stands out. Another one with ever-changing designs and the technology that we have nowadays. There are firms that work differently with the technology that is out there. So I would just make sure or get an understanding of whether or not the design and the consultant drawings are both up to date through CDs. So there's different ways of sharing your plans and all of your design work. And there are some that are live shared. So if you tell the structural engineer on a call to move a column, you will see that instantly. And then there are some that it will take a week or two to be able to process and understand if that column actually got moved or not. So just understanding kind of how they work. And the final one, and again, this, I'm not sure if you guys have already thought about this or if this is coming after, but understanding how the GC is going to be determined. A lot of times the owner has to find the GC and has to go bid out the project with the contract documents. Or is that something that the architect will give you a list of people that they've worked with, that they have good relationships with, or if that's kind of outside of their scope of what their contract is going to be with you.
Yeah, one of our questions does have the alternative kind of I don't know the technical term that they use, alternative delivery methods.
Yeah.
Essentially is, right, what is your plan for the GC? Is this gonna be contracted out? Is this going to be, a design build, or is it, a variation of such? So I think it's a good question to ask.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sir, you have any questions?
No, we talked on this list together before we came here. And the reason for the peer review comment was, I'm not exactly sure how some of these firms are gonna behave, but some of them may ask for it. But typically speaking, a peer review isn't needed unless it's an overly complex building. And I don't know if I would classify the proposed, from what I've seen of the proposed, as overly complex. So I don't think that it would be worth the town's money if they were trying to, if someone was trying to push for a peer review to be performed. And yeah, everything else that we discussed has been captured, so.
We have a town engineer, if you will, on retainer that I think Ray could handle the peer review process if we needed to have one.
Yeah, or we could just ask a blanket statement, how many of your projects go through a peer review process, or what is your approach to a peer review process, to get a feeling if.
Yeah.
We don't want to steer them in the direction to say we don't want it, we want to have their honest answer,
Right,
so if they
right,
say
right.
every single one of our projects goes through it, then we think in our mind, okay.
Maybe we do, yeah.
Maybe, maybe this isn't, a route we want to go down, or maybe this is something that we can negotiate with our own, or, something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah,
Could we have a copy of your questions?
Of course.
So we have it for record.
Yeah, and I was thinking that, we can take some of Ray's questions and we can take some of their questions, put it on one sheet, and then again, maybe before the meeting, everyone highlights a couple a couple of the questions that they like, and when we go through and we try to,
Yeah, because I wrote up 3 questions too.
okay. Please
Would it be
do.
different than what's on there?
They're a little, I think they're simpler. How do you ensure consistency and accuracy throughout the project?
Okay.
What project management tools do you prefer to use when designing a project schedule? Can you describe your most difficult project and how you overcame the obstacles you faced?
Yep, that's one of
Pretty
the
basic
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
But I think they're great questions, Al. I think they're all good questions, so. Can you email them to me?
Sure,
Or you can give them to me on paper if you have them. and I'll-
I made copies, so.
Okay,
All right. Have we heard any confirmation?
we
Okay.
have, okay, and this is the news you're not gonna wanna hear. So, I have them all tentatively scheduled right now for June 17th. That was before I heard back from Al that said he couldn't do June 17th. So right now I have them on Friday at 1. I send them up in 45-minute blocks at 1, at 1:45, and then at 2:30 on Friday, the 17th. I did, after Al reached out and said he wasn't gonna be there, I touched base with one of them to see if there was a potential that we could change date, and they already had a prior commitment, so I kind of stopped what I was doing to talk to the committee about it.
So they're all 3 available on the 17th though,
They are.
and you can't zoom in, you can't be there at all.
I can zoom in.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah.
I'll
Because
be-
one of them did ask if we would have a Zoom option, because one of their project managers was gonna be out of state as well.
Okay, I can zoom in.
Okay, let's do
from
Zoom then.
Canada.
Okay.
Perfect.
And also I will definitely say yes to the Zoom link
Yeah,
for
we
that
can
as
get a
well.
link set up, chief. Yeah, let's not change the schedule because of me. If it's good for the committee, it's good for the committee. That's perfect.
Okay, yeah, there was a lot of people that the following week wouldn't be available, that responded.
I think a Zoom link is great too, because if there's another committee member that
Right,
doesn't feel good, can't really make it, then
right.
they have the option of
Well, and
Zoom.
then they also we might see a bigger team come
Yeah.
forward to these meetings, rather than just the project manager and one
We're
other
at the
guy.
age of
Yeah.
Zoom is controlling our
Right.
lives.
Okay,
Yeah, Zoom is a good option.
All right, can you,
And if available, would you mind them zooming in?
sure, oh, absolutely, yeah. I think, it's a public meeting, I mean,
as soon
Absolutely.
as we get confirmation, we can send out a link.
we'll send out a link, yeah,
Email and maybe like an email 24 hours before, just so
yeah.
some people like myself.
I'll also send
won't
out like
forget.
a more formal question list, so we have all the questions, your questions and their questions all on one sheet.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Is there any other new business anybody would like to bring up?
there was a mention on the back of this about keeping it to a relative structure, not making it ironclad.
Yeah.
But if we don't whittle down this list, these are gonna be 2-hour interviews.
Yeah, I don't think we need to ask every
Good,
single
okay,
question.
good.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, I think if each one of us selects 1 or 2 questions that we think is, our favorite or what.
Do we want to go
hear.
through each question right now? Do we have
Just
time?
knock some
Do you have a
off,
meeting
yeah.
at 5?
We have a meeting at 5:30, but we could go
Kim,
through
do
them
you
real
have to be
quick.
somewhere?
I have to be here at 5:30,
Okay.
right in this chair.
Do we want to just go through them real quick then?
Sure, yeah.
I think that's worthwhile.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Katrina.
All right, what is your understanding of our needs and objectives? I think that's kind of a hard question to ask for me personally, because we're only giving them this tiny little tidbit of an RFQ for, I think we're going to kind of explain our needs and what we're going through. I think having them just kind of come off blanket, we're gonna get a bullshit answer. Is my.
I
I
agree.
guess we're
And that could be part of their presentation.
It could be part of the presentation anyways, right?
Yeah,
So,
okay.
okay.
No, I agree.
Okay, so maybe not that one.
Number 2, explain your strategy for achieving our objectives. Again, I think that's gonna evolve throughout the conversation when we tell them kind of our goals and objectives. That's will evolve. They'll probably chime in on how they can meet our needs that
Could
way.
this be substituted by one else, because you covered that pretty
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll add.
Simple
Al's
questions.
Okay.
Like you said, if the interviews are only 45 minutes, let's not make it into a story.
It's not making, well, and a lot of them reached out and, do you want us to do like a PowerPoint presentation? I said, no, because I just don't think we need to sit in the dark and watch a PowerPoint of all the buildings that they've done. I think, again, this is getting a feel, having a casual conversation. We're gonna get more out of it than just watching a PowerPoint.
I agree, I agree with you.
Okay. I think we do ask them, tell us similar projects that your firm has completed. One of them is identify some of the unique challenges and outcomes. I think that's a good question because we don't know what they run into, we're in a different
And
field.
some of them are in the book anyways.
Right.
So,
I think this is a great question. Tell us a project or a client relationship that didn't meet expectations. What went wrong? How did you resolve it? And I think that's a great
Yeah,
question.
problem solving.
Problem solving, exactly.
And guys chime in because you've done this
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and
Yeah. having a
Most of
little
us here
insider,
have it.
yeah.
kind of guide us.
Yeah.
If there's something you need to tell us,
Yep.
speak up. Don't be like your father.
I won't, don't worry.
Jim has no problem speaking up.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think your question related to the relationships is probably one of the more important ones to have,
Absolutely.
because it is unlikely to go through without any sort of conflict.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
So we're keeping that one, okay. Yes. Project relationship, yes. What will your engagement with us look like? How will you communicate with us? What demands will you place on our staff and organization?
I think Al had another question like this as well. I think it's better worded.
Right. What did you have, Alan?
No, I did say the one, can you describe your most difficult project? That was kind of. related.
Yeah.
What project management tools do you prefer to use when dealing with a project schedule? How do you ensure consistency and accuracy?
Yeah, I
throughout the
like it.
Second
Yeah,
part, I
yeah.
agree.
I like that better.
I would exchange that for number 5.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you this list right now.
What are your strengths as a consultant? How do they align with this project? What are your limitations? I feel like this is like a standard resume question, a standard application question where it's, what are your strengths and weaknesses? So, we could ask it, but I think you're gonna get,
They're gonna tell us the answer they want to tell us.
they're gonna tell us
It's
the
gonna be
answer you
canned.
want to hear. It's gonna be canned. So I would just, in my opinion, we could scratch that one. They're gonna tell us their strengths as they present to us, most likely.
Right, and they resolved all the weaknesses.
Flawless.
It's true. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
they're not.
They're not gonna know. They're not gonna tell us.
They put a girder 4 inches over where
Right.
it's supposed to go.
I think key team members is important. We want to know who we're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. I think we definitely want to know key team members.
And we want to know a little bit about what they're trying to target with their key team members. Because
Ooh, good.
a lot of times if things get delayed a little bit or if things progress slower, those people that they anticipated move to different projects and they're not available.
That's great.
Good to know.
And I would see if those people also align with the ones, I know some of the RFQs came with people that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're,
They've said that are gonna work on your
Yeah.
project, but you don't actually know, like, to be honest, a lot of those are, here's another one going out, here's another
Oh,
one,
yeah,
that this
it's
guy has this
Standard
experience,
30
here you go.
pages that goes in. Yeah.
Exactly. So make sure that they either align or that you're given all of the information about that person that's gonna be on your project.
Next question, I think this is a good question too, community education and outreach, because we know we're gonna need that. We're gonna know, we're
we
gonna
need a selling product.
we need a selling product and we
We
need
need
to
a
know
good salesman.
how, yeah, creative they are and how they're gonna help us sell this. We need that. So I would say keep that as well.
Who are you trying to sell to?
The towns.
For the
Townspeople.
money. It's all about the money.
Because my old boss just went through very similar thing that you guys are going through now, but related to a school, not a police department or fire department. And the biggest pushback was, why not renovate the existing building?
So that, we do have some people saying that now.
Yeah.
But
So,
it's the same footprint, no matter how you divide it into rooms. We are out of space.
Yes.
And that's kind of an easy answer.
Yep.
Understandable. You know.
So it's just that from what I heard from him talking, that was probably the biggest hump that people couldn't get over.
We started the process when we attempted to get money for this project moving forward. And some of those issues came up at town meeting. And fortunately, there was enough people in the know that have been following us that stepped up and actually responded. A couple times they stared at me saying, why don't you say something? Because it's more powerful from the
Yeah.
townspeople. It's self-serving if I say it, but they're the ones that are gonna benefit ultimately because it's their town.
Yep.
So I just let them. And there was enough positive momentum that it ultimately get passed. So I think we can see that as a potential hurdle, but I also think we have ongoing support that should help us meet it or exceed it when we get there.
Great.
But we did have a snapshot.
Okay, so we're gonna keep that on there.
That's number 8, correct?
That's number 8, yep. Number 9, tell us about your experience with alternative delivery methods. Give us some specific project examples. What was your role in each of those methods? I think we need to know that, because, you know,
Yeah, it would dovetail with hers.
it dovetailed with her
Yeah,
questions, exactly.
I mean, alternative to what though? What's your baseline with using the word alternative?
Right, like
Green
the-
initiatives, sustaining stuff.
And instead of just saying, what's your experience with alternative delivery methods?
Just delivery methods, you're saying?
Yeah, what delivery methods do you use? How do you communicate with your consultant? How do you
Yeah.
deliver your product to your consultants, to the contractors, to the town?
And
So
how
get
are-
rid of alternate,
Yeah.
Yeah,
scratch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think it's necessary, and I think it's.
No, you made a good point.
Yeah, it might
Alternative
be
to what?
confusing.
Right, yeah.
Like, are you anticipating this being a design bid build project, or are you anticipating this being a design build project,
Mhm.
or are you expecting this to be a CMR project?
What is CMI?
Construction manager at risk.
Okay, just want to clarify it.
Yep. So that's,
Maybe could you write some of the different
oh, yeah.
kind of methods down, so we all have an understanding, so when we go in and they're spewing these things at us, we kind of know what that means.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
that would be
if you
helpful.
could do that,
Awesome.
and just email them to one of us.
Yep.
Then we'll make sure everybody is on the same page.
Okay.
So we're all playing from the same playbook.
And then could you highlight the ones you would prefer? Because we don't know what's good.
Did you show up for the meeting?
Yes, she did write it down.
So
Yeah.
depending on
That's
which
awesome.
method, it can cost you more, and it can cost you more time.
Right, I think we want to see what their kind of, what they do on a regular basis, you know, what each firm does, what they specialize in, what they're used to. I think that gives us an idea of, you know, is this someone that we're gonna have from the beginning to the end, or is this someone we're only gonna have at the beginning, or is this someone that's gonna oversee what someone else is doing? You know, I think having an understanding of what they traditionally do is gonna be a good idea.
I mean, I think most of the firms, and I think those three specifically, I think they were all just design firms. I don't think they had any construction management staff.
Correct.
So I think that really puts you into the design side, construction side,
Mhm.
with you guys in the middle, sort of overseeing both. Talk more, but I really think that's the only way that they're going to go.
So,
Just, in my experience, I've never seen an architect hire a contractor before. But same as her, I've never done anything on a municipality level, so I don't know if there's been exceptions or different approaches.
makes sense.
I have a chart that I'll try and scan it, but if I can't, I'll get a picture of it. It actually lays out every type of project delivery method, and it will tell you what is the most cost, the kind of the triangle, what's the most cost effective, what's the most time spent, what's the best design work. So I will send that in the email,
That'd be great.
of course.
I think current workload, I think that's a great question as well. Are we gonna be someone's 15th project in line, or are we gonna be someone's 3rd project in line, or, I think probably most likely we're gonna be everyone's 15th project in line, but I think having an understanding, and I also think that falls into our timeline. Are we gonna get something that we can produce for town meeting for, next year?
Yeah, I think take their workload with a grain of salt if they can promise a delivery time, because more staff means more projects. Everyone's busy right now. But if they can deliver regardless of what their backlog is, I think it's good, but
So maybe even scratch out the first sentence of that. What does your current workload look like? And just do, what do you see as the critical path for meeting our schedule? Because that's truly the outcome we're
Right.
looking for, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Either they got one
necessarily-
left or 100 left.
Yeah.
How are you gonna help us?
Right.
yeah, and are you, and I'd end that sentence with, is this something that you foresee having issues meeting, or what issues do you see meeting this deadline? Something along.
What
those
potential
lines instead.
issues? Okay.
Yeah, because everyone's gonna tell you,
That they
yeah,
can
we
do
can
it.
make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
I think just asking the question number 11, alternative project funding. I don't think it's their job to tell us how to fund this project, but I think if they know anything, we want to know the answer. So I think just maybe saying, are any of the projects you're working on currently, or are you aware of any state or federal loan programs that we
Yeah.
should be
Or
considering?
grants or, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask, because they might have experience working
Yeah.
with
And
the
also the
federal
design,
programs.
that design they come up with may be funded by energy conservation or something else, where we can steer that way.
Right.
If we get some funding.
Well, and a lot of, there's a lot of firms and, organizations out there that have technical assistant funds, where they can give money to help do some of the technical side of things, where it's the RFP or the bid process or whatever. So if they know of any of those, or they're currently working with organizations that are using them, I think it's just a good question to ask.
Have you guys dealt with a lot of designs recently, really energy conservation, like the solar, rain recovery systems?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with environmental structures, the actual structural material. So such as embodied carbon in concrete, or trying to reduce any embodied carbon footprint. And what that is basically anything that creates CO2.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a lot of different alternative methods for creating concrete mixes, different ways of making the cement, different additives into it that can replace parts of the cement, different grades steel, different standards for different materials that possibly have reduced carbon impacts. I've been doing a lot of stuff with that. That fluctuates a lot on price though. You generally speaking, if you try to go outside of the norm, price does go up. As you start adding things into concrete, for instance, one of the additives of cement replacement is a thing called slag. Slag is a waste product of them creating steel through their furnaces and mills. But because of the cost of steel being high, the cost of slag is high. So replacing cement with slag, you get anywhere from a 10 to a 30% increase in cost compared to cement. Other alternatives might be a little bit cheaper, but everything has their pluses and minuses. But generally speaking, on the structural side, if you're making a change for green, there's an upfront cost, and it can vary in scale though, depending on what you're doing.
Hopefully a cost savings on the back end side of things or the front end side of things.
Right.
Upfront
Whether you can
cost,
get
right.
some sort of certificates through the government because you were a certain lead standard,
Right.
or because of other certain things that are out there that can give you tax credits or anything along those lines, help pay those off. But from what I saw on the building, I don't know what the primary building system is going to be. That'll be up for them to decide. But we're probably looking at steel frame building with concrete foundation system. And it's going to be a pretty standard, not a lot of flexibility in the structure to change things around.
But if you are interested in going with any LEED accreditation, or if there's a way that you can design for LEED, but not necessarily pay for it to be LEED accredited. So you can,
What's lead?
do you know what it stands for? I don't know what it stands for. It's-
No, I don't. It's basically, it's a
I'll send you
committee
the
of people or an organization that certifies that you are meeting certain environmental standards.
Gotcha.
And I think it gives you some tax credits. I'm not exactly sure during the operation of the building what it accomplishes.
Who would know that? Would the?
Your
the-
architect.
The
Yeah,
architect will.
Yeah.
Right, so that's why I think we want to keep that question
Yep,
on
okay.
there.
Because they may have the resources and knowledge.
Yes, they
Like
may
Yeah.
say
using
this.
ICF construction compared to just a regular block walls.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, there may be an advantage to that. There may not be an advantage.
and them knowing if you want to be LEED accredited or not, as soon as possible, is going to
It's
help.
gonna change the whole
And
cost
change.
structure, I'm sure.
Yes, everything.
Did you find it?
But there are, I have done HUD financing. So that's one that I think would be important to understand. I think it would be relevant to a municipality building, I'm not sure. And then I'm working on a chapter 149 building right now, which is a whole thing with Massachusetts. But if they can provide you with a list of types of funding, I think that would be really important. and
Leadership
helpful.
in energy and environmental design,
Yes.
LEED.
Beautiful.
And then I think the last question is something that's just like standard, like while they're leaving. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about yourselves?
Yeah.
that we-
That's our canned
It's
question.
great, that's our key question.
I can make chocolate chip cookies or something.
Yeah. I also think we should probably get the peer review question on there too somehow as
Yes.
well, because I thought that was a good thing. So,
Agreed.
So we've narrowed it down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions, pretty much.
Did we
Each
have on
nine.
there, like, who chooses the GC and handles the bidding and all that? That whole question was in there.
Yeah, the delivery methods, yeah.
Thank you. Must have been searching.
So if we have 45 minutes interview, 5 minutes for introduction,
A lot of their introduction might cover like
Yes.
who's gonna be on your
a lot of the
project and-
questions.
Yeah,
Right.
They may supply answers for
Right.
questions already.
Right, well, and that's why I think we should approach it as a conversation, that we're here, this is us having a conversation, it's not, like I said, Ray had the, firm presentation at 15 minutes and then question and answer at 30 minutes. I don't think we need to be like, okay, it's been 15 minutes and now we're going to our question and
yeah.
answer.
See, this is gonna be, one of them, the whole personality part of it is gonna be yours. If someone walks in the room and you would automatically go, I cannot work with this guy, then that firm's out, because you're gonna be working with him day in and day out. Yeah,
I know.
yeah, and all I can think of was Butch with the levy.
Right. Well, and like I said, we did a dam project in Camden and we made a mistake. We selected an engineer that was our lowest bidder and they were very experienced in that field, but we had concerns from the get-go. And if we would have just spent a little bit more money, I think we would have had a better client relationship. We wouldn't hire in Camden, they wouldn't hire them again because every step of the way was painful. Every change order was painful. Every communication was painful. So, I
Yeah, so
think,
you're gonna, during this whole, you're gonna have to keep an eye on that and know if you've got a
Right.
personality clash.
well, I also think, they're here to sell themselves. So, we're
Right.
gonna have to take some
They're
things
on
with
their
a grain
best
and salt,
behavior,
we're gonna have to try to put
Sure.
things in, just like when someone gets interviewed for a job, they try to put their best foot
I think
forward.
one of the things we should do is get references and contact these locations they've done work in
Right.
and ask the people, you've hired this company, what were some of the,
They have a-
Yeah, guys, it's in there, right,
contact these people and
after
say,
the fact and say,
Well,
what was your experience?
what was your
We can
experience
do-
dealing with them?
We
How
should
did
do that prior to these interviews, so we know coming into it.
I can do that, next week.
Absolutely.
Do you mind doing that?
Yeah, no, I can do that. I'll
'Cause
call,
then when the first one comes in, well, I spoke with so-and-so at this
Mhm.
project that you handled 10 years ago, and tell me about that. So, and you get the other side of it too.
I can do that.
If you're out of time, let me know, because I can make some phone calls too.
What's your opinion on giving them the questions up front or just wait till they get here?
I'll be honest, some of them asked for the questions up front, and I said that we were meeting today and that we didn't have a definitive list as of yet. I don't have experience that, so I don't know.
I don't
I'm
either.
fine with that.
Okay.
The only
It's
reason
gonna
is,
expedite the process.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm
It's gonna
absolutely
move
fine
things
with that.
up in that presentation, they'll answer a bunch of these.
Right.
Because we will have other questions as they say something,
Yeah.
it's gonna make
Right.
something click and it's gonna go, oh, well,
Mhm.
speaking about that, how do you feel about this or whatever, so I think giving them the questions up front so they have a definitive and concrete answer is a great idea.
If
Or
the rest of
even
the
if you just
committee's
gave
okay
them a
with me.
few, you don't have to give them the whole
Give
thing.
them the whole thing, I mean, we don't have anything to
Something's
hide.
gotta be a surprise.
Oh, don't you worry.
The only thing you're gonna.
I was gonna say, Tammy's gonna be in the
We don't know,
room,
we'll
it's
get
gonna be a
back.
surprise.
I mean, you've seen this.
Or some
Oh,
embellishment.
yes.
Yes.
What'd you say?
Unfiltered.
The
Unfiltered.
surprise is gonna
Because I have
be.
them.
Why do I have water?
references prior to
That's
the meeting,
OJ's.
and then-
It's Tammy.
Because I put it on there, tell them we need water meters. Do you see the back of OJ's?
Right, they said it worked
Spit it out
well
and show 'em.
swimmingly, and it didn't, right.
Jimmy.
I put it on the back of OJ's, same thing, so he sees it every time he comes in.
Poor Jean has nothing on hers.
The other question
Oh, I
I
can
was
fix
wondering,
that.
ought to be
Yeah,
asked,
she could come up with something good.
I know, if you call a lawyer up, talk to him 15 minutes, you get a bill in the mail.
You're
Mhm.
in place.
Is this gonna be built into their,
If mo-
I'm not saying talk to them for 2 hours every single day,
Yeah,
but if we've got a question now and then.
most
will-
contracts
will
that
they, like, once a week, have a meeting with us?
Yeah, I would assume so, maybe not once a week, but
Or-
on a schedule that we have like,
Right.
I think most contracts are gonna be built from my experience, what I've seen, they're gonna be built, it's gonna be a contract price, it's gonna be an X dollar amount. And there may be some fees that are gonna be additional on top of it, but, for like the town engineer and for other things like that, it's a contract based on the project. No matter if you call them once a week or once a day. So we were just, and I think that's getting more into when we start getting cost estimates from them.
So this whole design will be conceptual, right, through the entire project. Should there be some sort of question in there about, okay, well, what if we get the funding for one side of it now and the second side later? I mean, should there be anything in there about that, or is that at a later date?
No, I think that's a great idea. We've talked about this previously. There's a possibility that this is going to be a phased approach. There's a possibility that we'll build the PD first and then, build on for the fire department at a later date. So I think it's probably a good question to ask is, will you design this as to be kind of flexible and I guess be able
Modular.
to, yeah, for us to be able to do it in phases if that's the only funding we receive? Because I think if we get funding next year that would fund half of it, we gotta jump on it and go.
Now,
We don't sit and wait back for the whole
will
amount.
the architect design the whole building, but we only build half? Will they do something like that?
Yeah, so I think that's a good
It's
question.
gonna-
we need
That's
to
the
ask.
way, yeah, say we only get funding for,
Probably cost you more in the long run.
It's
Yes.
gonna depend
It
what
may.
you guys want and how you guys want to approach it, because there are a handful of things to consider. So you could design half the building, build half the building, then come back later, design the second half, connect to the existing building when you're building it. That's one approach. Another is you do the full design and you only build half and then you build the other half. But during that build process, the architecture accounts for half of it being an operation by itself and everything that they need. The structure accounts for the building being built only half and being self-supporting by itself. The mechanical systems have everything in place for only half the building. And everything is just sort of an additive when they go to build onto it. So it's definitely something you want to talk about first. The second approach, if you know that you want to do it phased, the best approach is that second approach where everything is designed up front.
Yeah.
And then they design it to be phased and then they build it phased. And yes, there will be added cost because
Right.
the systems need some added detailing, or you might need some stronger structure in certain areas that you wouldn't necessarily need if you built it all at once. Or the lateral system, the thing that's keeping the building standing up now is a smaller footprint. So that has to be a little bit beefier to support the single structure compared to when it's spread out a bit more, it can be a little bit, it works more efficiently. So it's definitely something to discuss and have in place. But if you're able to get the funding to go all out, construction in one phase is the best. for
That was the
us.
ideal.
now, I have a question, but you may not be able to answer it. You guys haven't done any municipal buildings, right?
Correct.
Okay. So my question was, why would a police station per square foot be the same thing as an open fire station, like just open building? Do you understand what I mean? Like a fire station is basically a big garage, okay? Compared to a police station where it's like a complex office building. Do they break it up or they just average it over the entire building? John, do you know that answer?
I've never seen them average a building like that. Usually utilities and things like that are totally different, or like you say, a fire station versus a
Yeah.
police station. Police station's much more detailed.
Yeah, I know when contractors are putting together their estimates, they're digging into things a lot more detailed. On the design side, a lot of companies will know historically on academic projects, we on average get this much per square foot for a design.
Right.
On industrial, it's this much per square foot. On high-rise commercial, it's this much per square foot. And to just get a proposal or an estimate from the design out the door, they could just estimate an average based on what they've seen historically that's working. But when it comes to the actual construction costs, yes, you will see it different between an open warehouse of 1 square foot and a police station of the same square foot.
Yeah, that's.
I would also just, architects are usually involved with the GCs and everything like that, so they understand kind of how the market is working as well with the cost of everything increasing. If you're looking at phasing this, your second phase could potentially be more expensive if the price of steel goes up again, or if and your lead time could also completely extend by months if a mechanical system or something is on back order for.
But
24
they
months.
have designed buildings where they propose the mechanical systems are all in, just not hooked up and operating. Correct?
Yes.
It depends on the size of the building and code based on where things have to be and have to live.
Right.
But it is possible that you can design it so that all of the systems are in the first.
So if you're
phase.
doing,
phase,
I want to, example, if you're doing radiant floor system on the entire structure.
Yep.
You'd want to put all your radiant floor in, you
Yes.
want to put your boilers in, you want to have all that, you just wouldn't have all your valves turned on,
Right.
or something like that. But it's, everything's there, ready to go, just not operating.
Yep, that's a possibility as well.
Right.
With the size of the building, I'm pretty sure, and I don't do much on the mechanical space.
Right.
But from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure, based on the size, that all of the systems would be able to be housed in one,
Yes,
in one area. And then any sprinkler lines or electrical boxes or lines, I should say, could just be spliced on and connected from phase one into
You
phase two.
can, to some extent, you can stage your construction. For instance, the water treatment plant up here.
Yep.
It had 2 units in it to start with. It was designed for 4. Now it's got 3 units in it. It's designed for 4. So you can expand, and that's the way you can build this. If you have a police station you have in, but you don't have the fire station in, maybe you don't need 2 furnaces or whatever, however you design it. You can do things like that.
Right, you just want to ensure that whatever we build
Yeah.
could be built onto or could expand.
Expand it easily.
Right. I think it's a good question to ask.
do we have any more questions? Are we all in agreement with the interview agenda on the back page? It's just a rough estimate.
Yeah.
Because some of these introductions may be a minute or 2, some may be 5. I mean, I think this is just kind of a,
Right. And again, they, some of them asked, do you want us to do a PowerPoint presentation? And I said no. So I think the firm, the introduction and the firm, could kind of meld into the presentation and then the questions. And hopefully it just kind of grows organically. So where we can get what we need from them and ask the questions we need answered.
Do you have these meetings back to back?
Yes.
Then you say, don't worry about running over time.
Yeah, that was something Ray added, but we're gonna call it. We're gonna follow a timeline, I think, we're gonna try, I mean, if something runs over 5 minutes, it runs over 5 minutes, but,
I think giving the questions ahead of time, I think that'll keep it a little more streamlined.
yeah,
yeah, they'll be a little more prepared.
exactly,
Yeah, and give us the answers that,
right,
they won't have to generate the answers off their heads.
Yeah.
And then they'll probably give us the answers we want to hear anyways.
Sorry, one final thing.
Yeah.
When you're asking about how they communicate with you guys, I would make sure that you guys are comfortable with the way that they're communicating with you, whether it be through Zoom or through Teams or something like that. If you are expecting them to be up here once a week for an in-person meeting or once a month for an in-person meeting, I would just make sure that that's captured in your contract with them, because we don't want to see the extra fee come to you guys when you're assuming that you're going to get someone in person, or you're assuming that a weekly meeting is happening. Just make sure that you guys are comfortable with that, because there's definitely been some miscommunications.
I mean, I think
Sense.
reaching out ahead of time to some other business places they've done.
Yeah, did they show up or did they Zoom?
And obviously, we're getting their best there, I'm sure.
Right.
Whatever's in their book is probably their
Right.
best.
well, and I think most of these firms, they did a job, they completed it, they did it to the budget, it's successful,
Yeah.
right? But someone else might have a different viewpoint.
Sure.
Do we have any old business we'd like to bring up? Cal, did everybody get to see about Mansion Hill? It's just me.
I didn't get anything about
I
that.
did.
Okay, just me then. Let's not bring it up.
Okay.
Pardon me?
Motion to adjourn.
I'm still concerned about that piece of property by the state owns.
Okay.
I mean, I think we really need to pursue that, because that may take some time also. That triangular piece we're talking about, 7/10 of an acre. I think, somebody, maybe yourself, could write to the state and see what our options are to own that piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably, we're gonna have to cross that bridge. I mean, unless, for some reason, whoever comes in thinks they could do it within, the confines of the town boundaries.
I've never really seen a property where they have too much land. I've
I
always
don't
seen
disagree
property
with
where
that.
there's not enough property, not enough. land.
Well, and I also think that if we intend to do the emergency access lane, we're gonna
Yes.
need, if not that piece of land, at least an easement,
Easement over that piece of
it,
land,
right.
yeah.
We got Jim's house too for the helicopter pad.
Gee, I know where this empty land across the street, I might rent it to you.
It's on the other side of Paula Road.
So we're gonna land the helicopter in Debbie's front yard. Perfect,
Will actually be my side yard.
perfect. That works.
I have nothing else unless anybody else here has anything else. I'd like to thank
Yeah,
Of course, of course.
Mr. and Mrs. to be. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you so much. Jen, for coming.
We'd love to
I really
have
appreciate it.
you be like a consultant to us if you're available.
Anytime you wanna join
oh,
us.
lots of value.
So that means you have to come back on the 17th.
You're a lot more savvy with the computer than the young gentleman next to you.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, that's not hard.
Give me some for a long time.
so you guys are meeting, the next meeting will be the 17th of June,
17th. Yep, 17th of June.
and we'll have Zoom available.
Yep, first interview's at 1, so maybe if the committee wants to get here a little bit early, so we can just get all of our, ducks in a row, maybe, 12:30, 12:45, just so we're here first, because I imagine they'll show up a little bit
So
early.
we'll have the firm sitting where you are,
Yes,
and you'll be sitting right here.
right where you are. You'll be right above me on Zoom.
I'll make sure I put my Canadian
You have that-
background behind me.
We'll have that mute button ready, right?
I just have to change the background on it a little bit.
Bouncy uniform or something.
Yeah.
If there's no other, yes, sir.
Whose email do you want her to send stuff to?
She can
Town
send,
manager, yeah.
send it to the town manager,
Yeah.
just do the chain of command here.
Yeah, send it to me, I'll put everything together, and then either by the end of the week or early next week, I'll get everything together, we'll get the Zoom link all together, and we'll blast it all out in one email to everybody.
I think any correspondence should go to town manager, top of the food chain, and then down to the committee members.
Absolutely.
Works for me.
So it's all recorded through her that she's responsible for getting it to us.
Sounds good.
So if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded. Meeting will be adjourned at
Debbie seconded.
16:53 hours.